this year. For instance, I spoke about the long-term copper price trends, but in fact, this year, because of the COVID lockdowns in China and the expected slower economic growth and therefore lower demand for copper, they fell almost 20% just in the second quarter of this year. And fossil fuels have also themselves been able to provoke price shocks. Let's say when one look at the trends, you would say the expectation is that their price will fall of fossil fuels as the transition away from fossil fuels pushes its demand to the bottom. But there is also the fact that supply conditions have also been deteriorating earlier as a result of the drop in investments in oil wells, natural gas centers, and coal mines. As we have seen this year, let me call your attention to how tricky is the transition, in the sense that since 2015, the investments in oil and gas have declined in most cases, and today, for instance, several members of the OPEC, of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, are not even able to comply with, to use the quota space that their latest agreement allowed them to. So you have a supply constraint, and that's why we saw President Biden going to Saudi Arabia, trying to see to what extent they could ramp up to fill that gap. And of course, we also have, it's worth highlighting let's say the dangers in the trajectory. For instance, Europe made the option of relying on gas, particularly gas from Russia, as a sort of a transition strategy to reduce, let's say, the oil demand, but also, let's say, gas would be not as bad as far as carbon emissions as oil and so on, and that's what the strategy has all been based on. And then we have the war, and we have the already a tightening of availability of gas. And guess what? I read, we all know that Germany, Italy, Austria, and the Netherlands have all signaled that coal-fired power plants could help the continent through a crisis that has sent gas price surging and has added to the challenge facing policymakers battling inflation and even crossing the winter. So it's terrible that, hopefully only temporarily, we might watch some return to gas. In a final warning, right, about the special chapter on this whole thing, which is the case of developing countries. The needs will be high because the emerging markets are projected to emit an increasing share of global emissions, and they're already struggling to make investments in sustainable development in the wake of the pandemic. As we saw in the episode on the perfect storm, the latest developments have not been that much favorable in the case of many emerging markets. And advanced economies have not fulfilled their obligations in pledged climate finance assistance. So moving forward, the advanced economies and multilateral institutions must help in multiple ways. And the obstacles to investments, and particularly in the case of green infrastructure in non-advanced countries, will be a future subject of our series here. So in a nutshell, accelerating the transition will be necessary to keep global warming at lower levels. That transition will likely come with price shocks derived from rising metal price, energy costs, and carbon taxes, the green inflation. The green economy will also require public spending and redistributive policies. And we are facing, in this perfect storm environment, energy security related and geopolitical challenges on the road to decarbonization. And just in case it might interest, I wrote a bit about on this policy brief at the Policy Center for the South. Thank you very much.